Head of Maritime Safety for the Coast Guard, so I appreciate your accommodating my schedule. So, Mr. Secretary, you have a little bit of a, the Smithsonian obviously has kind of a split personality here when you get, 62% of the budget comes from the feds and 100% of the maintenance. And then, you've got to come up with the balance. But again, this points us back to, authorization appropriations. And, I've been an authorizer for 33 years, and we get a little sensitive about these things. And there have been a couple of instances that were of concern where, at one point, you purchased a building and then paid the trust back with federal lease payments, and then you sold it for a profit and put the profit in the trust, and then leased it back again. Again, all without sort of, I would say, proper oversight. And now you want to buy a new headquarters building, and you've asked the appropriators to allow the Smithsonian to use federal rent payments to pay the trust back for the purchase, but the building will be owned by the trust and not the federal government. And at least your predecessor said the Smithsonian does not need authorization for that. Do you agree with that?
I think that what's clear to me is that the Board of Regents feels that they have great statutory authority based on the charter to enter into work with the trust that's for the mission of the Smithsonian. I think the most important issue for me is to say candidly, the Smithsonian has made a lot of mistakes in terms of communication, in terms of really working effectively with the authorizers. And the one thing I can say to you is, if I look at my career over the last 14 years, it's been clear that I've worked very well with Congress and I've really embraced transparency. So my notion is that the Smithsonian will not make those mistakes again. And one of the things I've done is I've asked the Smithsonian staff to work together, to bring together a group that will actually pull together a periodic white paper for members of Congress so that any issues that I think are important that need to be raised, you'll see them in a timely fashion. I am committed to making sure we don't repeat the mistakes of yesterday.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, and it sounds like perhaps we can begin to turn the page here, and that would be good, because we want to be advocates for you and help with these issues. But as far as I know, the annual appropriations bills at this point, I mean, you're recognizing Congress has to have a role, not just the Board of Regents, are authorizing your leasing authority. And is that, do you understand that that's the way it has been working?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
That we have statutory, you make sure that the federal leasing authority is something that you grant to us.
Right. Well, yeah, 40 USC 301 doesn't, allow for it to be sort of outside of the process. So I appreciate some recognition of that on your part. So at this point, I'm going to yield my time back to the chair for her more incisive questions, and I've got to run off and try and be an expert on maritime safety. So thank you, Mr. Secretary.